All right, today we're peeling back the curtain on something huge, one of the biggest but also quietest financial moves in recent memory. It's a story all about France, a literal mountain of gold, and maybe most importantly, what it all signals for the future of your money. So just picture this for a second. A quiet room in Paris. One person signs a document, and with just that one stroke of a pen, 129 tons of gold that's been sitting in the United States for decades, just moves. It's gone. Forever. There were no military ships, no armored trucks, no dramatic Atlantic crossing. It was just a silent but absolutely monumental shift. And the sheer scale of this, it is staggering. We're not talking about a symbolic gesture here. That quiet little transfer, it was worth over 12.8 billion euros. Yeah, this was no minor portfolio tweak. This was a massive, powerful statement on the world stage. All right, so let's dig into the strategy behind this whole silent transfer. Because, this isn't just some story about France's bank account. It's really a story about a huge shift in global finance that, believe it or not, could connect right back to your own savings and your investments. So, how exactly did they pull this off?
Well, it was honestly a brilliant piece of financial engineering. Super clever. Instead of the old school way, physically shipping old gold bars from the 1940s, the Bank of France just sold them in New York. And then at the exact same moment, they bought brand new, top quality, ethically sourced gold in Europe. It was a strategic swap, a replacement, and they executed it flawlessly over 26 different transactions in just 18 months.
But here's the thing. To really understand why France made this move right now, we've got to jump in a time machine and look back. Because, as it turns out, this isn't the first time France has made a really bold statement using its gold.
So back in the 60s, you have the French president, Charles de Gaulle, and he's looking at America spending all this money on the Vietnam War and the space race, and he gets really suspicious of the US dollar. He basically thought the US was writing checks it couldn't cash, so he did something absolutely audacious. He sent actual military ships and planes to bring 3,000 tons of French gold back home. And you know what? He turned out to be right. Just a few years later, in 1971, the US cut the dollar's link to gold, and the whole global financial system was just thrown into chaos.
And this comparison really gets to the heart of the story. Think about it. The move in the 60s, that was loud. It was a very public act of defiance. Today's move, totally silent, super efficient, almost surgical. The methods are polar opposites, but the underlying reason, that deep-seated distrust in the global financial system, well, that hasn't changed one bit.
So that brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Why now? Why pull off this silent, strategic move in the 2020s? The official explanation, well, it's one thing. But the real story is way, way more interesting.
So officially, the Bank of France just said, it was simply more efficient. It was easier to buy shiny new gold in Europe than to upgrade our old stuff in the US. It's a perfectly logical, technical, and completely unconvincing explanation. It is basically the financial world's version of saying, it's not you, it's me.
Okay, so here's the real story. It's all about geopolitics. First, you've got this growing distrust in the US dollar as the one and only world currency. Then there's the US national debt, which is just a mind-boggling $34 trillion. But the real kicker, the big one, when the West froze Russia's foreign reserves. That sent a shockwave through every central bank on the planet. The unspoken message was crystal clear. If it can happen to them, it can happen to absolutely anyone.
And look, France is not alone here, not by a long shot. This is part of a huge global trend. The World Gold Council says that today, 59% of central banks want to hold their gold at home. Just a few years ago, that number was only 41%. That is a complete reversal. The message couldn't be clearer. Countries just don't want their most important assets sitting in someone else's vault anymore.
Okay, so central banks are moving gold around. It's a fascinating game of geopolitical chess, for sure. But why should you, sitting at home, actually care about any of this? Well, because these high-level moves can have very real, direct consequences for your own financial life.
Yeah, let's make this personal. What does this whole silent gold war actually mean for the money in your bank account? For any government bonds you might own? Or for the ETFs, those bundles of stocks, in your retirement fund? The signals these big banks are sending, they're like a preview of a financial world that is changing, fast.
Let's break it down real simple. If you own global investments that are priced in US dollars, a weaker dollar can actually shrink your returns. Simple as that. As all these central banks keep buying gold, that naturally pushes the price up. And as this trust in the whole system shifts, the value of government bonds can start moving in ways that are really hard to predict. It's all connected by these huge, invisible currents.
But listen, this isn't about panicking, not at all. It's about understanding the strategy. And the moves France just made, they offer a really powerful lesson for every single one of us as investors.
Before we get to that lesson, though, we need a quick cautionary tale. It's famously known in financial circles as Brown's Bottom. And yeah, it's named after the former UK Chancellor, Gordon Brown.
See, between 1999 and 2002, the UK sold off a huge chunk of its gold reserves at absolute rock-bottom prices, right before gold went on a historic tear. It was a catastrophic error in timing, a total disaster. And it just goes to show you, gold isn't some magic bullet, and even the biggest central banks can get it spectacularly wrong.
The really smart central banks, though, they get this. They don't go all in on any one thing. And the lesson for us is crystal clear. If your whole portfolio is in, say, your home country's bonds, you're basically just betting on a single government's promise. If it's all in dollar-based funds, you're totally exposed to a single currency. The strategy the big players use is diversification, spreading the risk across different countries, different currencies, and different types of assets.
And this, right here, is the ultimate lesson. The real takeaway isn't go out and buy gold. No, the lesson is in the how. France's strategy didn't start yesterday, it began over 20 years ago. It was done quietly, strategically, with a long-term vision. It wasn't some panicked reaction to a crisis or a scary headline. Real, true financial strategy, that's built in the quiet moments, when nobody's watching.
You see, that one signature in Paris was so much more than a transaction. It was a quiet declaration that the old rules just don't apply anymore. The world's biggest financial powers are silently, steadily correcting their course for whatever storms might be ahead. So the only real question left is, have you?